My name is Jono, and I do pencil drawings, kind of like these. And I'm going to be going through some DMs and just questions that have come up in the comments of some of the videos and my posts on social media and stuff. Also, this video is sponsored by Squarespace, but I'll tell you more about them later. First question, did drawing come naturally to you? Did people ever discourage you? Drawing didn't really come naturally to me. I loved doing it, but I was by no means the best. And I had some friends in primary school who were way better than me and actually ended up helping me out a lot. They helped me with finding like a point of interest. And then by the end of primary school and beginning of high school, started becoming better and better. And eventually throughout high school, we were all kind of the same and feeling very competitive, and we pushed each other to try and be the best versions that we could be. But I was no means the best at it. And I think that was really good because it taught me about practice. Hard work was never something that I took for granted. But fortunately, I didn't have people discouraging me. I think there was some skepticism around whether it was a viable career path, but I really didn't listen to that at all. How much further has education actually advanced your career? And this is an interesting one because I think a lot of people think it's crucial to have an education, and there's so many artists who don't. I'm also a proof that you don't need an education to be able to sustain yourself with an art career. But interestingly, I think that because of my lack of education, it afforded me almost a kind of an ignorance in the art world where I just thought that I was really good in the beginning, and I hadn't been exposed to a lot of what actually good artists were doing. I wasn't thinking particularly deeply about my work, and I hadn't been encouraged to break molds and be exposed to just absolutely like a whole world of incredible work and ways of critiquing work, and I didn't have that inner critic. So I was quite like brazen and ignorantly confident and happy to just put my work out there, whereas my friends who were studying at the time, I think, started to get this sense of like, oof, I can't really put myself out there with these giants that they're aware of. And I was kind of just like, la la la, my work is great, I'm going to put it out there. Next question, how did you sell your work when you first started out? I think that I get this question a lot, and this is a pretty cool one. I sold very few works, but I did sell one or two, and I think it starts off the same for most of us. We're selling them to friends and family, and it's just so exciting when someone is willing to part with their hard-earned money to purchase something that you spent doing out of a place of like experimentation and joy. And it's just like, how does doing this equal money, which is such a wonderful feeling. And then the next really hard hurdle is moving from that support from your network, your immediate network, to strangers. There's multiple ways of doing that. I think one of them is to have affordable pricing for your work so that there are some kind of like winners who got in early and can be excited for your journey. It's also like an early investment. The likelihood of those people who might actually be your contemporaries or your peers moving forwards with you, and as their earning potential rises, they start to be able to afford your work being more expensive. And I think that's the really strong foundation that people want to try and build. The other thing was donating work to charity and auction events to just try and get eyes on the work, trying to get your work seen by as many people as possible. Back then, I come from a small town, and there was like an art magazine in the town, and I just cold emailed them and was like, hey, look at my stuff. I think it could be a cute story. And luckily they went for it, but I don't think that'll work today. I think that's quite a difficult approach because now everyone is trying to show their work because it's a competitive career. So a lot of places that would show artworks are inundated with emails and cold calls from artists who are hoping to get an opportunity. So I think the winds have changed slightly on how best to do that. But that is something that I got a bit lucky with, getting exposure in that way. But that alone isn't going to help you. There's so many avenues that are important to try and pursue altogether. Next question, I produce a lot of work but haven't turned it into a career or any real money. Should I do the galleries or freelance? How do I get my name out there? I think it's important to acknowledge what you're doing already in this case, and that is that you're doing the hardest part, which is producing the work. A lot of people have this hobby and a dream of turning this into a career, and when it comes time to put pencil to paper or to create a series of works, all of the doubt, all of the heaviness of that just causes them to not produce the work. So the fact that you're producing work is absolutely the hardest part. Then turning that into a viable career becomes a creative problem to solve, and that's quite exciting as well. The easy answer is to get your work seen, and I think one of the easiest ways to show your work is with a website, and I'll be sure to tell you all about this video sponsor in a little bit. But building a website really is one of the best ways to have your work available as a portfolio, to tell the story of what you're doing. And it's almost like a very easy business card that has an in-depth curation of your work and of what you're excited about. And I think that that's probably one of the foundations that are important to look at. The next is that social media is kind of crucial. It's expected in a way. There are outliers to all of these. There's going to be incredible artists who went up through certain avenues and refused to do social media, and that's kind of part of their story. But if you're looking at kind of the big numbers game and broadly what has worked for the majority of artists, having social media is definitely going to help. Once you have those doorways to your work covered, the next thing would be to go to art events in your town or in your city and talk to people in galleries. And it's really difficult to learn how to network yourself in this way. I am absolutely terrible at it, but there are proactive ways that you can go about it. So one is just to keep trying, view it as a challenge. You don't have to talk to the gallerist specifically. You can talk to just maybe someone who works there, or even just the other people looking at the work. It's a muscle to practice, talking to people about your work, talking to strangers especially, and to view it as practice, I think, is a really helpful way to go about it. The next thing, if you absolutely can't do that, it can be nice to ask a friend to come with you, and to maybe ask that friend to kind of wingman you in terms of approaching galleries. And so if there's an opportunity and a gallery is, or a gallerist or someone who could be a connection is there, your friend could potentially say, oh my God, you should see this person's work. And just little openings like that. These are things that you can really kind of practice and go out and try. And the truth is that 19 out of 20 times, nothing will come from it. And it can feel cringy. It just is what it is. But one time out of 20 is all you need to create an opportunity that could snowball into something bigger, because one opportunity really does open up the door. And then at potentially your first group show or whatever that is, the networking there, doing exactly the same thing, but now maybe your work is on the walls and you're talking to other galleries and just expanding. So you do just need that 1 out of 20 to really grab that opportunity. So yeah, there's multiple ways, if you do have a body of work, to start getting yourself out there. One of the things I will add, though, is the commission route is something that I personally have a little bit of a warning for. I have this belief that wherever you put your energy, you'll grow in that direction. And so if you find yourself doing portraits of people or families for people's birthdays and things like that, you'll grow in that direction. And if that's something that feeds your soul and you love, perfect. And that's a wonderful way to make a living. But if you want to be experimental and you're doing work that is, communicating something or exploring parts of who you are, or I'm not sure what it is, but work that essentially might suffer if it's being dictated by external factors, so like commission work, try your best to avoid that. It's fine if it's a means to an end, but that's where the trap is that it's really hard to justify doing work that has no guaranteed income attached to it when there are people asking for work that has guaranteed income. And before you know it, all of your time is being used up just sustaining your life by doing commission work. And I think that that's a really difficult one to get out of. And for me, I had to very actively pull myself out. And I'm grateful that I did, because all the work that I produce is part of my portfolio, which ultimately is the thing that I want to keep doing. And so I'm putting my energy into exploring my story. And that's an important thing to think about if you think about the body of work that you'll be producing. This question is actually really wonderful. What is some advice that isn't just keep practicing? I really love this, because just keep practicing is really good advice, but it does suck to receive that advice. I think outside of that, what has been really powerful for me in different stages of my career has been journaling. And the reason for this is because it creates this kind of interrogation, especially if you start asking yourself questions around, why am I drawing? Why am I doing this? Why am I using pencil? Why am I not working in color? Why am I drawing an elephant? Why not people? And the answers to these questions can really help us to refine why we're doing what we're doing. It can help us to shift away from almost mindlessly doing something to kind of intentionally teasing something out. What starts to get really interesting is when the work that you're doing starts to perpetuate some of these questions, when you might not have the answer to one of the questions that you're finding yourself journaling about or asking. And so I know this sounds more abstract, and so the work that you're making asks that question. And I think that's where things get really interesting. And this stuff just starts to happen as a byproduct from the practice of journaling and introspection. And I think that can really help elevate your work from something that might be a little bit more mindless or just a practice in catharsis, which there's nothing wrong with that, into something that starts to resonate more deeply with you, and then will resonate extremely deeply with people who haven't yet even thought about those questions, and the work starts to open up doors for them. And I think that's one of the powerful things with art, is the conversation between the artist and the viewer. Your job as the artist kind of is to step out of yourself and look at yourself, or at least at the world, and make connections for people and encourage connection, encourage questions. I mean, yeah, it's a very idealistic way of looking at things, but it's quite a nice idea. So yeah, journaling is an extremely powerful practice that isn't practicing. The next question is, what is the single most valuable piece of advice for someone who's trying to make a real career from art? And I think this captures the previous question really well, because I think that the single most valuable piece of advice is to try and get in touch with your authenticity. And that's not to be confused with originality, or novelty or uniqueness. Authenticity is something different. Often might lead to originality and novelty and stuff that no one's ever seen before, which is absolutely wonderful. But the likelihood is that we're going to be making things that other people have seen before. But if we're making it because we authentically are fascinated by it, and or find it absolutely beautiful, or whatever the reason we're doing what we're doing authentically, that connection is going to resonate with other people, because we are all very similar in a lot of ways. And that resonance that's the combination, that resonance, that's the conversation between the artist and the viewer. And I think if you do manage to find your voice, that authenticity, the likelihood is you're probably going to have a successful career, because there's a real conversation going on, and people who are enjoying art are looking for those connections. We tend to value things that move us, and something that comes from someone being brave and vulnerable and very real with firstly themselves, and then being able to do that with the world. We're going to value that. And As we end the video, it's pretty fitting to say that having a website has definitely been one of the things that have helped me massively in my career, which is a lovely segue into this video sponsor, Squarespace. I've been working with them for a couple of years now, and they've played a huge role in my career, not only in sponsoring these videos and helping me maintain this channel, but early on in my career, I was looking for a way to showcase my work, make it easy for collectors to find me and get in touch with me. And I didn't have time to learn HTML and to build a beautiful, reliable website. But I found that Squarespace did all of that effortlessly. I never had to patch or upgrade anything. I could register a domain with them and set up an online store. And most importantly, I could design a portfolio and show my work the way that I wanted to. Also, every time I got stuck, their amazing support team helped me out instantly. So if you're looking at building a website, give Squarespace a try. And if you decide that you love them, use this offer code and get 10% off your first purchase. There we go. This has been really cool to explore. And I'm really appreciative to all the questions that come my way and the stimulation of needing to think about these things. It's not something that I always find the time to do, and I think compiling it all into a little presentation like this has been really cool for me. So thank you for the questions, and I hope that some of these have been helpful to those who have asked them and to anyone who's asking similar questions. Let me know in the comments, obviously, if you have more. I'd love to try and answer them there or in the next video. And if you found any of these helpful, leave a like. It helps the channel and me out in a huge way. As always, thanks for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.